turn on the
Come on with it.
Come on with it. I'm about to wait.
Shay, fam. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the sons of God is the difference between the stories. We have a lot of time zones that's missing and time frames that's mentioned. First of all, the time zone and the time frame of a roach is not equivalent to that of a bee or a black man. But on the contrary, you can take two roaches. I like talking about simple shit. Take two roaches and take an old one and a young one, and yet the old one look at the young one as if you don't know anything, you're not old enough, you need more time.
You seen some roaches today? I thought roaches was like 3 days. But they live that long? They don't live that long. It's all about how old you are, what you experience.
Roaches live a long time.
How you say that?
Because I killed a roach one Wednesday, and it took to 2 Wednesdays for it to stop moving.
So it's like 2 weeks.
It took 2 weeks. It was steady moving.
Why didn't you stop it? Just kill it, end this life right there, let it suffer.
I didn't mean to step on it, but it was when you check out the phenomenons of nature, the points I'm making, the phenomenons of nature, man, nature is hidden. It's a falsehood we've been tapping on for a long time. Things that's natural. First of all, nobody knows what's natural. Like on this journey of trying to seek what's natural, I've been finding out the world around me is the more unnatural the world has been. Like the more real I've been enticed in this experience of life, the more unreal things have happened. You know, the true naturality is unnatural around you. When you look around, everything that works is unnatural. When we talk about this pen, we talk about the cars that we use, we talk about the electricity systems. All of these things need alternatives because they're unnatural. However, we're using them. The whole entire world is successful. The capitalism system, the technology system, the banking that sponsors and censors the technology systems of the world, who create the inventory in the industry of the world, because you can't have money without a demand or use of money. So now that we have people who are being used, it's safe to say that the technology rules their use. If you want to have slavery, you got to have technical people around you.
Like slaves.
Right. I mean, but slaves were not that technical.
Slave masters.
Slave masters were. And the first slave masters were not white. I'll rephrase that again.
Oh, yeah.
The first slave masters were not white. I want y'all to look up Origins of Slavery by a brother named El Naki. Got YouTube. Subscribe his YouTube. But we have many references to true, I think it was a book by York called Our Bondage, which touched on certain things. There's John Henry Clark that touched on certain things. Even George Washington. When you study George Washington, how his story, symbolically, they have a story about him as a child. When he cut down a cherry tree. You ever heard of that?
I thought that was George Washington.
I said George Washington.
They said Abraham Lincoln.
Anyway, I said George Washington, and he chopped down a cherry tree. Now, I'll get to Abraham Lincoln since you brought him up, but he chopped down the cherry tree. The cherry tree was actually the flag of the United States prior to the flag as we know it of today. The cherry tree was a representation of the actual American flag. When you look up the word America, it's another word for essence. America. Erica means essence, and it's a woman's name.
Erica Badu.
Well, that's a replica. But it means also Morocco. Morocco. More means land, means carbon, it means original transition. And everything that's natural is in a transit state, it's in its eternal state. The true atomic, the true atom is transition, he's steady changing. And so, now that we know that the original flags were the cherry tree, we have to ask the question, why was the cherry tree chopped down? Why was the flag chopped down? If the flag of America was cherry tree, why is the real flag of America chopped down? Whose flag of America are we representing today? You know, and all of this ties into Abraham Lincoln. How he said he freed the slaves. Slaves of who? Slaves of America? Now, which America? The America before the cherry tree or after the cherry tree?
Before.
And not only that, prior to this thesis that I'm pointing out to you, You had Italian slaves, you had Irish slaves, you had Jamaican slaves, you have plenty of slaves. You have stories of Haitians and other tribal people who basically condemned slavery, took over slave ships, and began to use hoodoo and other supernatural sources back to the true natural. When you learn the unnatural world around you, and you learn your nature within you, the natural world is within you. You don't see it. The natural world is unseen. The natural God is unseen.
How can we see it then?
You see it through the supernatural inventions, meaning things that I bring. When I supersede, when I give out information, when I give out inventions, I'm taking things that are natural and I'm superfying them. That's why I like to make that word. I advance them. I use them in a proper manner. Superman is a man who found his information within himself and produced it in a skillful manner outside of himself. Your supernatural state is everything that's inside of you that you're able to bring out in a skillful manner. For example, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Michael Tyson, these beings are beings who were naturally good and in tune with things that they did. So they showed it in a supernatural sense by showing it, expressing it, true expression, emotional contact. You know, and so Abraham Lincoln, you know, he was one child of a Slavonic.
What?
The real. Now we're talking about slaves. The real slaves. First of all, the freeing of the slaves were true. The Emancipation Proclamation was a letter, a public statement. Emancipation Proclamation is a public emancipation proclamation, meaning a proclamation, meaning a public statement. That's all it was. It was a public meeting, a public conference. Nothing happened. Nothing legally was changed. There was many emancipations prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. And the only thing that made this Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln special is the fact that he said in a symbolic manner, when you study his Lincoln statue, you see that he stayed in a sitting manner as the same Egyptian god named Ramesses, who sat in the throne. As you look around in Egyptology and you look around with all the Egyptian hieroglyphs, when you look around at their histories and at their symbols on the walls, and their writings on the walls, their prophecies, you see that Ramesses was the, I wouldn't say the only one, but one of the ones that are publicly stated to sit down while his slaves were in labor. And a slave is normally one who was hired on or was volunteered to put himself in debt. The word debt means to keep away from somebody, to save money. So a payment can't be a debt. So money is debt. You can't pay somebody with money. And you know, and so this is the origin of slavery. I'm trying to tap on the origin of slavery to you guys. The origin of slavery is employment of any kind. And Proverbs and I believe Psalms separates the two. It separates a man from a hired man, just like Genesis separated a living soul from a man. And when we tap into these things, we learn that we have to become adults before we become men, and we have to become men before we become living souls. The same comes with being employed. You have to learn to do for self before you can help other people. You're yet a slave until you do for self. You're yet a slave until you produce jobs out of your family. You're yet a slave if you work for another family. You're a slave to that family. And Abraham sat on his statue. He sat down on the seat as the new Ramesses, the new Egypt, the new land of bondage, not slavery, because you're not Slavic. No blacks were Slavonic. This is a group, a race of people. These are pale-faced people. These are albinous people. I have a skin of an albino state, which when you look up the word hobbit, where the word white woman comes from, hobbit, the first white woman was known as a hobbit. And this is where the word habit comes from. When you study these industry technology work that I'm throwing at you, you learn that it's the difference between habits and inhabitation, right? And when people are studying slavery, they're studying minor. What I mean by minor and minorities is the minerals of the world are things that were elements that were minoritized, meaning M-I-N-E-R, things that were mined out of the ground, that were taken out of the ground, that were extracted, dug out, right? Like gold, you have to dig in the ground to get gold. diamonds, rubies, any other element that we use for industry. We have to mine it. All minerals that we use are just another replica of saying things that are mined or pulled out of the ground. And so minorities are people who yet use their hands to dig things out of the ground. And a hobbit or habit was one who was a miner, one who was put in bondage by other beings, elves, beings that were outside of the planet, beings who basically set up civilizations. And this is where the word El, Elo, and El Elohim come from. When you study the Els, these are where the word Elk or Elkins or Elf comes from.
Elkin, what's that?
When you study elf, you ever heard of elves?
A little fairy tale creature.
Little fairy tale creature, exactly. When you look up the word fairy, it means supernatural. And supernatural means magic, and magic means skill. Yet again, I told you, the more real that you get, the more unreal you're going to realize the world is. The more natural that you get, the more unnatural you're going to realize what's around you. And then only then will you dig within. That's why Jesus, when they asked Jesus, where is the kingdom of heaven? Where is God's, where is his kingdom? Where is your Father's kingdom? He said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so everything that we're stating, we already know about beings who set up our religious data, who set up our calculations and collectivity of characteristics of how to look for God and how to look for supernatural forces. We understand that these beings gave us a physical place to look outside of ourselves, where they said that the beings came from Sirius star constellations, from a planet called Risk. And when you get serious, you take a risk and things like that. Whenever this energy or this temper or this emotion called seriousness taps up into us and we get serious about things, this is when we get supernatural. This is where we get holy. This is where we get sincere. And when you study Proverbs and Psalms, it teaches that sincerity is holiness. And the things that you're sincere about is the things that God backs you up on.
So, if the kingdom of heaven is within us,
right?
Where we go when we die?
Where do you go when you die? You go within.
So I go within myself.
You go within yourself. Your light contracts. Your light literally shoots up into you to a degree of what? Impulse, right? They call it impulse. First of all, we have a thing off the heart. The heart is based off of what? Your pulse rate, right?
Yeah.
Check the man's pulse, right? Check his pulse. But a lot of the scientists, they don't like to touch on the first element to things. They always give you secondary knowledge. First of all, pulse rate is a secondary rate. There's a first that produces the pulse, which means the spark. There's a thing called the spark rate that people need to tap into, the nanometer of pulses. The very, I'll call it the middle layer, the real time. The energy that produces the pulse rate in general. For motion that takes place, energy has to take place. Motion is the residue of energy. And there's a thing called energy in motion, which is emotion that produces motion. Meaning movement without energy. And it's normally caused as a radiance or something from energy movement. But the point I'm making is that El Elohim is a product of El Elo, right? And these beings are who we mistake as the elves. The elves are what you call the beings of supernatural states, the ones who assign habits, the ones who assign the hobbits their jobs, the ones who sit up, they hide themselves. That's why we call them Most High. They hidden. These are beings who tap into their natural states within themselves. They found their heaven. When you look up the word heaven, it says heave in, to look within. That's what I mean by this. And when we saying that we die, think about this. When people die, they say they tap into life after death, right? That means that as soon as you were born, you began to die. You're not living your life, you're dying your life. Only when you die did you get life. That's why it's called life after death. It's not called life after life. So y'all gotta think about that. Thinking is not illegal yet. It will be sooner or later.
So you saying elves are real?
Elves are real.
Where are they at?
The elves are beings, so like for example, Elijah Muhammad. was a real small guy, wasn't it? When you look at the Buddhists, when you look at Horus, these are real small guys. And elves are known for being very small. They're known every Christmas for building and inventing things. This is what I mean by supernatural. The inventors, see, the elves. That's why when you locate me in the city, I'm addressed by Els and Bays as El Naki, which is a title, and then I'm given my abbreviation and name under a title, which is Nasut El Nun, which are greater or later became El Atim, and El Tim or Itim is short for etymology, which means the source. Which in Islam, the source means Allah, which came from a woman named Halat. And this is found in the prayers of Arabic prayers and Aramic prayers, or the children of Abraham. Because when you say Abraham, you're saying Aram, and Arabic is Aramic. So Aram's language is the Aramic language. Anybody speaking Aramic, you're saying you're part of Aram's family. And Aram is Aries. This is a star constellation. This is a zodiac frequency. Anybody claiming to be under Abraham, you're claiming to be under the Arams, you're claiming to be Arab, and Arab means a lord. You look at the word Jews, how they have Jewish rabbis, right? Or Adonai, the word Adonai is the first name for husband, which means man of the house. House is what? The family. The God, the grandfather is the house, the man of the house. The house is the family, the bloodline. So you say you enter the house of Israel, you're saying you enter into the bloodline of Israel. And that's why they said nothing can save you but the bloodline of Jesus. But they were talking to Israel. They were talking to everybody. They wasn't talking to anybody but Israel. And when we study these frequencies, we learn that the true knowledge, the true information is literally inside of you. And we have to learn it. We have to look around and notice what's without us is within us. Whenever we go without, we go within. So back to slavery. If we learn that the origin of slavery was Slavicry, and the first slaves were Slavics, the rest were people who volunteered their service and created bondage. What I mean by bondage is product of sharing. First of all, there's 3 layers to commerce. There's 3 layers to capitalism. There's 3 layers to money. The first layer is appreciation. Second layer is sharing. The third layer is bonding. In appreciation, you have 2 wings. To every bird, you have multiple wings. And 1 wing is recognition. You have to look at what you're going to respond to. It has to appear for you to recognize it. You cannot build appreciation on things that you can at least build some sense of appearance towards. Imagination can cause things to appear. So if you can at least imagine in it, you can appreciate it. And so recognition can build accountability. Because now you can hold things, you can keep a cord, you can write down, you can keep up with things that you recognize. That's called appreciation. And that's why a lot of our marriages that come together are broken apart. That's why a lot of our businesses that come together are broken apart, because we're not keeping up with things that we recognize. We only keep up with things that are recognized badly. We're not keeping up with things that are recognized goodly. That way we off balance with our recognition and our accountability. So our appreciation is messed up. And you can't get to sharing until you have your appreciation. Because sharing is comparability. It's actually compatibility. Because you're combating. When you're sharing with people, you're normally fighting with people. You know, I'm just trying to give you some information. Well, this is how I see it. Well, this is how I see it. And people usually combat. And out of combating, you find what you can compare. So out of sharing what you recognize and what you held accountable and hold yourself accountable for, you can share with others in bond. Bond meaning, intertwine with things that you don't have to be in compatibility with. Things